welcome. Hope you're all well and good. I'm doing okay myself. So, anyway, this week's Versus video, the mighty RoboCop. Now, I loved this film back in the day. I mean, there was a real load of these sort of films come out in one hit. I mean, we had like Schwarzenegger and obviously Stallone all doing them great action films of the time, and then RoboCop come along, and it was another great action film, one we all wanted to see, but again was too young to see it on the cinema screen at them times, so we had to rely on good old videotapes. So anyway, this was come out in 1987. Very violent film, you know, but hey, they were successful. Violence was successful then. It made the films. Also, I was a big fan of Judge Dredd comic books. Oh, I love Judge Dredd. So when this came along, I was like, wow, you know, futuristic RoboCop. What's not to love? So the film came out and it was brilliant. Loved the film. And of course, then it transpired into an arcade game by Data East the following year. And I remember playing it at the arcade and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, I had never played this on the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64, or the Amstrad CPC. I'd only ever played this on the arcade. So, another suggestion from you guys, so thanks for suggesting this, because I actually went back and visited this game, and I have to say, I really, really enjoyed it. So, if you've got any other suggestions for me, do pop them in the comments, alright? Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Equally, if you don't like the video and you don't like my verdict, don't hate on the verdict. But do let me know in the comments and tell me why I'm wrong or why I'm correct, okay? Fair. Can't ask any better than that. And also, do hit that subscribe button for me if you haven't already done so. Now, as always, we're going to take a look first at the arcade version, then a quick look at all three home conversions, and then, of course, right at the end, my verdict. So, let's go. So, to kick off, as always, we're looking at the arcade version of the game. And this is RoboCop. This was 1988. This was released by Data East. The actual film was out in 1987, but Data East released this a year later. As you can see, graphically, it's very good. The sound was good. It played really well. And it's actually stuck to the film very well indeed. This was a very well received game when it first came out, sort of the run and gun, typical sort of scrolling along, making your way through, shooting the enemies from windows and obviously lower levels. Later levels you get robots and stuff like that. You've got to take on them, you've got a guy throwing your grenades and things. And you could upgrade your weapons and things like that as you went through the various drops that people would make. Now, as I say, this was a great success on the arcades. In Japan in particular, I think it was the second highest game for the year, which made it very popular. So it paid and earned very well, so it was no surprise when this was going to get crossed over to the home platforms, again by Ocean Software. They tended to pick up a lot of the home conversions of classic arcade games and movie tie-ins and all that sort of stuff. But as you can see here, graphically, as I say, it was really good. The sound was great, and it was interweaved with other sort of sub-levels. So you'd have your normal levels, and then you have these sort of shooting gallery levels in between. One where there's a hostage situation. This one's like a target range, and but overall, it was a very playable game and very popular. So it was no surprise that this was going to get a home release, which it did. Obviously, we're going to be looking at three versions today: the Amstrad, the Spectrum and the Commodore, and hang around till the end for my verdict as always. And I will say, don't hate on the video if your machine doesn't get the verdict, but do let me know in the comments why you agree or disagree with me, okay? So that concludes the look at the arcade classic. So without further ado, let's head on over now to the CPC Amstrad. So, the first home system we're looking at is the Amstrad CPC version. Now, this was very well received by Amstrad users and Amstrad press at the time also. it was very well recognised. It had nice colourful graphics. It played fairly well, and as I say, the magazines gave it some really good scores indeed. Now this is quite a famous tune, well remembered by Amstrad gamers from the day. They really did rave about the music for this, and it made good use of the chips that Amstrad used for sound. So it was all in all a very good conversion, and one Amstrad fans were very proud of. Now, I mean, when these games were out back in the day, I mean, we're paying anywhere between sort of $7.99 up to $9.99, and even more if it was on disc, of course. The cassette version is, I think, would set you back about $8.99, maybe $9.99. I can't recall. But hey, you know, great time to be alive, great games, and obviously cassette loading times and the rest of it were a right pain in the backside, as we all remember, I'm sure, and this was no exception. But hey, you know, all in all, a very good conversion. Again, I'm going to show you sort of the basic first level from all three of the comparison systems, and then I'm going to show you the intercut, one of the intercut levels where it's the sort of shooting range thing or the hostage situation. So not a lot more to say about this version really. It was overall very good, and as I say, very well received. So as a versus video goes, this one's going to be quite a toughie, because all three versions that I'm looking at are very good. So all in all, let's see how the verdict goes. This is the Amstrad version. So next up, the classic ZX Spectrum, Sinclair ZX Spectrum version here. We're looking at the 48K version. Now I am aware this was out on the 128K, and the 128 did a brilliant job of this and gave a lot of soundtrack and speech as well, so it made it even better than this version here. But in fairness, when I do my versus video, I generally always try to stick to the 48K version where available. Okay, so that's the reason I'm sticking with the 48K. Now, as you can see, graphically this was sharp. The Spectrum did an absolutely wonderful job of this, and RoboCop looked brilliant, and to be honest, it translated brilliant from the coin-op. Okay, you know, it lacked the colour of the Amstrad, and it lacked the colour of the Commodore 64 version, but graphically and gameplay more than made up for it. It was a really good conversion. Now, a few facts for you on this one. When this was released on the Spectrum, this stayed in the Spectrum chart for over 18 months. For a year and a half, this was still floating around the game charts. That's how popular a title this was, and it was a mega game, and it was so well received by the magazines of the time and the computer press. It just got brilliant reviews all round. So if you were a Spectrum owner and you got this conversion, you were very pleased with it. I know I was. It just played and looked lovely. It was brilliant. Also, just out of interest, Your Sinclair magazine, the readers of that, voted this the 9th best Sinclair ZX Spectrum game of all time. So not to be messed with. I mean, it was a cool game. We're going to have a look at the intercut scene now, with the hostage situation. I found with this version as well, I think the hostage situation, the crosshairs and stuff, moved slightly faster than the Amstrad version. But both very good conversions. And of course, we're now going to take a look at the C64 version, and then of course my all important verdict. So last but by no means least, the Commodore 64 version. graphically not dissimilar to the Amstrad version. Your typical bright graphics that are always part of this, well, usually part of the Commodore 64 setup for games, and of course that sound. The same theme running through this that we had running through the Amstrad version, and again, as always, the Commodore 64 always did have brilliant sound, making great use of the SID chip of the time. This was no exception, and again, more great sound from this. Right, gameplay wise, it plays well. Does it play as well as the Spectrum or the Amstrad? Well, you have to wait for my verdict at the end, of course, which is coming up anytime soon. So, as you can see here, it stuck quite well to the arcade original. Again, you made your way along the levels, shooting, you get your various power-ups and things. I don't know if this is as busy as the other versions. Looking at it, you know, it was to play. It plays nicely. They all played very, very well, to be fair, and that's what makes this such a tough versus video. But I have to pick just one, of course, because hey, that's the rules, and I'm sticking to them. But it was a real joy to revisit this game, because again, this, as I say, this one, I'd played it on the arcade, and I knew it really well on the arcade, but I'd never played any of the home systems. So, playing it now on the Spectrum, the Amstrad and the C64, it was good to revisit it and actually play them for the first time properly. This come out on an awful lot of other systems as well. I mean, you're talking Atari ST, Commodore Amiga, Nintendo NES, etc. But obviously, we're only focusing on these 3 home conversions from the 8-bit systems of the day to make it a nice, fair, comparative video. So, without further ado, we'll shortly go to my verdict, and please do remember, if your system doesn't win, don't hate on the video, but please do let me know in the comments why I'm wrong or why I'm right. And equally, any more suggestions for video games? Let me have them, please. Wow, I'll be honest, right? All 3 versions were really, really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed all 3. All have their positives, okay? But, as we know, there can only ever be one winner. I have in the past done a draw, but I've said I'm never going to do draws again unless I really have to. So, Commodore 64, sound chip, brilliant, great use of the SID chip. The Amstrad, the graphics were really, really bright. Love bright graphics. ZX Spectrum, obviously, was the chrome, the two monochrome colours. But the version for me that took it, ZX Spectrum wins, and I'll tell you why. As always, the graphics were so sharp for the Spectrum's abilities, and obviously we saw the 48K version. I always use the 48K version because I think that's a fair judgment, and the gameplay was brilliant. Obviously the sound effects didn't have the music, didn't have all that sort of stuff, but just very basic sound effects. But this version, to me, graphically was the closest to in terms of the sharpness of the sprites and that, and it played brilliantly. The C64, the Amstrad were both great conversions, but for me, the ZX Spectrum took it. Alright, great game, so well done ZX Spectrum. Now, as I said right at the beginning, don't hate on the video if you don't like the result, okay, but do let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. And also, please do give me more suggestions for game videos, because I'm really enjoying visiting these old school games again, okay, all through your suggestions. Now, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and please do subscribe and hit that bell, ding-a-ling-a-ling, because then you'll be notified when I upload new videos, which is every week, sometimes twice a week. Hey. So anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching and supporting my channel. You're awesome. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. And hey, I'll see you next week. Cheers. If you watched the video and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe for more great videos. Thanks for watching.